This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring programme that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest, we got Karen Teasdale. How are we, Karen?
I'm all right, thank you. Made it here anyway.
Thanks for coming to Glasgow, and thank you for coming on the show. I'll just plug your book straight away. It's one of Britain's most evil mothers. You've got a book called Poison Kisses. I'll read a bit from the back. Poison Kisses is a harrowing true story of survival, betrayal, and the unthinkable. Cruelty hidden behind closed doors. From the outside, she was a doting mother. Behind the scenes, she was a narcissistic psychopath with a terrifying obsession to cause pain. Professionals were baffled, though later her daughter was informed that her mother had many complex mental health problems, including, what's the
Munchausen by proxy.
Munchausen syndrome by proxy. But her manipulation went far beyond seeking attention. She thrived on control, humiliation, and abuse. Her daughter was her primary target. Her son, also a victim, was manipulated into becoming a reflection of her, developing traits of a malignant narcissist. Their father, caught up in a crossfire, became another casualty of her cruelty. In one horrific incident, her son, fueled by years of psychological manipulation, inflicted a brain injury on his own father, the quiet gentleman who had tried to hold the family together. The situation spiraled into chaos, with police attending the family home 237 times in just over 1 year due to her son's escalating violence. Authorities couldn't understand why she refused to let him go, but their toxic bond, rooted in a narcissistic, psychopathy.
Psychopathy, yeah.
What is psychopathy?
It's just
psychopath?
psychopathic, yeah.
Rooted in a narcissistic psychopathy, mentally dependent on each other in a deeply disturbing and destructive way. This is a raw, emotional account of a child made to believe she was sick, a family torn apart by psychological torment, and a woman who fought to uncover the truth after decades of abuse. From the childhood confusion to adult revelations, their memoir sheds light on the dark reality of living with a parent whose love was a lie and the strength it took to survive it. On her father's deathbed, she made a promise to tell their story as this is it. Boom. Where can people buy your book, first of all, Kat?
Amazon. It's available on Amazon.
Like I say, madness. I've interviewed a lot of sort of people who's been traumatised and abused, but again, this is one of the worst. Like I say, I've interviewed a young guy whose mother used to beat them near enough to death, and he was eating rat poison, rat droppings because they weren't getting food. This is sort of another tale along that way with the psychotic mother, where she hid it well, but it was the kids who suffered.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. I do have germ phobia pretty bad, and I believe that's rooted from me childhood as well. I was agoraphobic for many years and I still suffer with agoraphobia, but I come out with somebody to help us through that, because the trauma was very, very deep root. To be honest, I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah, no doubt, Karen. But before we get into everything, though, I always like to go back to the start of my guests, get more of a bit of understanding about you, where you grew up and how it all began.
Yeah. Well, I was born in a small village called Linscreen. I was told by my mother that she nearly lost her life. Everything was because of me. And I suppose it started there, she liked to blame everyone for everything, especially me. She was extremely narcissistic. She couldn't take any accountability and she couldn't ever say anything nice. And if she did say something nice, she would take it away. But basically, I was born in a cottage in the middle of the woods. And then I moved on to a small housing estate called Highfield Estate, 23 Lees's View, and that's where my book began. I was only about 4 years old when my mum began hurting me on purpose for nothing. And of course, I was too young to realise that my mother actually had an obsession to hurt.
Was that your first memory of it? Could it have started beforehand, or was that 4 years when it started, or what you can remember?
I think it probably started beforehand. There's vague memories of other things, but I could remember that vividly. And I remember vividly thinking that my mum must be mixed up. And I think as young as I was, I still didn't want to think anything wrong of me mum. And that obviously is children love their mothers and I loved mine no matter what was wrong with her.
What were you like at school?
I was a good scholar. I was a good child, actually. I was quite quiet compared to my brother. He was quite sort of impish and mischievous, I was a good little scholar, really top of the class. I was good at English. Just very nervous child, that's all.
What's the age difference between you and your brother?
My brother's about 6 years older than me. He was in the bath at the same time. He was blowing down the plug hole and he was making the noise. I thought it sounded like an elephant. And I was laughing, but my mum could not bear anyone being happy, and that comes out later in the book as well. She had many obsessions. It wasn't just the obsession to hurt. And she came in, and even though I was screaming that it wasn't me, of course I was crossing on my brother. But she lashed me with a leather belt when I was only 4 years old, to the degree that I couldn't lie on my back at all for months.
What would you get beatings for?
Nothing. If she wanted to hurt, she would do things and create scenarios which would make it appear as if I had done something, or if she couldn't get that fix from me, it would be from somebody else. And she created scenarios constantly to do that, to get that fix. She had an obsession to hurt,
See, when you were getting beat, did the school ever pick up on it?
I think so on one occasion. Well, I mean, not one, but I had told the little infant school that my mummy didn't love me. I knew that my mum was being horrible, but I didn't know how to explain. I was very, very young at that time. As I got older, I was covered in marks all over my body, and a swimming teacher picked up and she actually screamed in front of the whole class, all the other students who were swimming. And she swung us round in front of everyone and said, "What the hell's that on your back and legs, girl?" But by that time, I was probably about 8 or 9 and I'd been trained never to tell anyone anything that went on in the home. So I said that I had fallen because my mum said if I ever said a word, I would get put into care.
Were you beaten every day?
Mostly, yes. And my mum had an obsession to hurt every day.
Just you or your brother and your brother?
Mostly me, because I was the youngest. I was the easiest target, but my brother did get it as well. Yeah, he did.
What'd your dad say?
She made things up to me dad. She would always say, they've gone to bed, they've done this or they've done that or they've done the other. And if we were trained, if you breathe a word about it, you say anything, you'll get it even harder. So we were really, really indoctrinated from being very young not to breathe a word.
What was she like when your dad was there?
She would often be quite false in front of me dad. And, you know, she would make out everything she was doing for the best for us. For example, you know, she would say, oh, they're doing that, they can't do this. This is, you know, I'm doing what's good for them.
What was the worst beating you got as a kid? Do you remember?
The worst beating I got as a child. A lot of it wasn't just beatings though, as well, you know, a lot of it was mental cruelty. And if she couldn't get a fix by actually physically hurting us, she would do a lot of mental things. And I mean, I do remember once I skived when I was a young woman at school, probably 13 or something like that. And I wanted to sunbathe the same as everybody else. And basically, when I got home, my dad wasn't there. He was looking after our shop because she had her own business. She was very clever, you know. She wasn't. She had a lot of good things how she portrayed herself as a businesswoman. And basically, my dad was in the shop and she dragged us in the house and then through the garden. And I can remember her pushing a spade in my hand and making us dig my own grave.
What sort of shop did you have?
She used to sell clothing, and then she started selling clothing and jewellery and diamonds, and she was importing diamonds.
What was she around other people? What was she like?
She was two different people, possibly more. To be honest, I used to say she had 38 different personalities. I don't know why I said that many, but she could put anything on seriously. If she wanted your sweatshirt off your back, she'd have it.
Like bipolar?
I don't really know. I don't think so. I think more psychopathic.
More extreme?
To the greatest extreme.
And did you notice all the sort of changes in her? Did you notice all the different faces?
Yes, I did. And I got to know what I used to call the mad eye. You know, she would come down the stairs with one eye like that. And I thought, oh no, she's gonna start. She's gonna kick off. She's gonna start, you know. I can remember being like, say, 7 years old. It was my 7th birthday and she was coming down the stairs and I turned round and I saw her because I was wondering, every day you lived with, is she going to be in that mood? Is she going to be in, it was nice mum, nasty mum, nice mum, nasty mum, you know, and you knew by looking what was coming, and I would try not to look at her to try and avoid any kind of confrontation. And then I learned from a very young age how to placate her. Well, I thought I was learning, but I was trying to think of what to do to bring her out of her moods all of the time. And on my 7th birthday, for example, it's in the book, Poison Kisses. She had written loads of cards out for us and put them on the top of the television. So I thought, oh, she's going to be nice, you know. And the cards were there, and I didn't realise that she'd written them all out. But basically, she said, open your cards, and I opened them and she said, do you like them? And I said, yes. And I was over the moon that I had some birthday cards and they were on the top of the TV. And then she turned, you stupid little girl. Do you really think anybody loves you? Nobody else loves you, only me. And did you not notice? And I was too young. And I said, notice what? Notice what? And I went into total panic. And basically, I developed a nervous anxiety disorder from being a very young child because of my mother and how she was, and needing to placate her constantly. And of course, when I opened the cards, it was all of my mum's handwriting, and she had done that. You know, she studied what to do to be able to inflict hurt, pain, humiliation to me and other people.
What was a good day like?
There was never a good day, but there might be a good half hour, but then or a good hour perhaps, and you would be with her and you would think everything was all right, and then bang, like a light switch. That's it. She would turn nasty. You could be in the middle of laughing at something and she would turn nasty. My most said sentence of my childhood was, Mum, please stop being nasty. Mum, please stop being nasty. And I couldn't change anything.
Seeing you when she got you to dig your own grave, how old were you?
About 13 or 14 years old, and I had did to skive, You know, she said I was a headstrong, strong little bastard, and I probably was, you know, and I wanted to have some fun, the same as other kids, really. But I would do anything to be away from home anyway, you know.
Did you ever think about running away?
Yeah, I did run away a few times. I ran away, and I ran away with a friend of mine called Tracy. Well, very young, only went down the sandpit, and all I took was a bag of knickers. So, but I wanted to be away, you know, and then someone must have said where we were, but I wanted to be away all the time. Being honest, me grandma, my mum's mum, was my salvation,
How so?
because I stayed there as much as I could, and that got us through most weekends, you know. And I was told by a cousin of mine, our Thomas, that I was actually me grandma's favourite, and that he said that my mum, when she'd had me, she was devastated, and that she'd gone to the house and said, "Oh, I've had a fucking girl." So excuse me language, but he said, you know, that's why my grandma took to me so much.
Did she ever know what you were going through?
I think perhaps she did, and that's why she took us under her wing, you know what I mean? In hindsight, I think she did. Um,
Did she never explain that she had issues from her younger years, or was it not until she was older she started to become sort of psychotic?
My grandma was really timid, and she wasn't like, she didn't call me mum, but I do remember her saying, "Your mother, you know, the way she was as a child." Even when she was a child, she used to say, she used to tell the postie it was her birthday just to get whatever she wanted, you know, and she would stamp her feet and this, that, and the other, and she had like certain ways, and she would sit and look in the mirror constantly, and you know, I think my grandma knew there was something. I think we all knew there was something, but we didn't know what. And I mean, the biggest thing for me in hindsight is knowing from very, very young, my mum constantly told us that my dad was dying of cancer, but he wasn't. And this was all massive impact on my mental health and my brother's mental health and our lives, you know. She was always saying that one of us was poorly, that one of us was ill. And we never put two and two together, basically. And I think because we'd been, that's what we'd lived and we knew nothing else, that became our norm. That became to us, for our mother to be saying that someone was dying or my dad was ill, or we just accepted it. It was her. It was how she was. It never crossed my mind about Munchausen by proxy until a few years later, maybe in my late teens. I can remember being with a friend and saying to a friend, "I think my mummy's poisoning me," or "I think my mum is poisoning me." I was in a friend's house, and of course, this lady must have thought I was being awful, but I wasn't. It was because I think somewhere in my brain I was registering, why am I ill all of the time? Is it me mum? You know, it's something, but I didn't want to think bad of me mother, because if you knew me mum, she was extremely convincing, and for someone that had an obsession to hurt and all these different obsessions, she would actually tell us that she loved us every day. And the main thing was, she always wanted to be our saviour. So why would I think that of her? And I felt bad about it, because this lady actually turned round and said, "Oh, you horrible girl, saying that about your mum," which just double reinforced that I was wrong, but I wasn't. I was right all along.
When did you start taking it ill?
I started taking ill very young, and there was always either me or my brother poorly, and we never knew what was wrong or why. But I can remember in the doctors coming in, and I was on round about 14, but on about 4 injections a day, 2 on a morning, 2 on a night, rolling round, crippled in pain. Didn't know what it was, spewing green bile. And the doctors were baffled as to what was wrong with me. And I can remember me mum and dad's friend being at the house, and there was a sick bowl there, and basically I was being sick, and my mum was agitated, and she turned round, and it was like being stabbed with a dagger through my heart, being honest, because she turned round in front of her friend and she lost it. And she turned round and she said, "I wish you would just hurry up and fucking die." And that hurt. It was from my own mother's mouth, and basically I got the strength together to get up. I went up the stairs and I got into her bed, and I had pains in my back, in my kidneys, and I lay there, and I remember lying there and I put my hands across there, and I was so poorly and had been poorly that long that I prayed to God to either take me life or make us better. And I got better within a few days, and I believed at the time that God had made us better. I was just young. And in a nutshell, my belief now is, after I was told that my mum had Munchausen by proxy, I believe that my mother had made us very, very poorly, and that was why doctors were baffled and didn't know what was wrong. But basically, I believed I got better because there'd been a witness, and that was the man who I knew as Uncle Brett was sitting on the chair, and he'd witnessed me mum saying, "I wish you would hurry up and die."
What do you think she was doing? Poisoning your food?
Yes, I do. I do believe she was poisoning me food. When I emptied the house, I found lots of rat poison, amitriptyline, all of that, but not just that. Basically, in a nutshell, when my brother was eating some food, he found glass and tablets in his potato, and that alarmed social workers.
What do social workers do?
Well, by this time, the police had been going to the house a lot. Like I say, I always say to people that basically, in a nutshell, there was 237 visits to the home in 18 months prior to my father being found brain injured, but there was hundreds of more visits. It's just I have all the police incident records from the 237 times. That's what I mostly speak about. The police and social services were liaising with each other, and I think everyone was baffled as to why she wouldn't let me brother go. But I understand because I lived that life, and my mum was extremely over the top possessive with us. And that actually, to me, is, it came across as being possessive, which are over possessive, which made us feel we were loved and overloved, but it was all part of the Munchausen by proxy, I believe. But when they found the glass and tablets in, when my brother found that in his potato, and he was being sick, he was bringing up blood and he was passing blood and all of that. Basically, in a nutshell, he'd called the ambulance for himself. He was frightened. And my mum had gone outside and smashed the ambulance lights so they couldn't take him away.
Who was phoning the police?
My mum was phoning the police. What would happen is she would create scenarios, and she was creating a lot of anguish in the house and arguments and accusing people of things and doing things. She could cause an argument in an empty room. She would cause the trouble. And then my brother would get like really uptight and my brother had become an alcoholic, of course. I think he was trying to escape from the abuse we'd lived as well. But basically, in a nutshell, my mum was ringing the police on my brother, but then she wouldn't let him go, and she would say, "Oh, we're just having a party," or things like that, or "Oh, he's got a record deal coming," because they were still believing that my brother was going to make it big in the music world, and because he'd co-written a song for the Eurovision Song Contest when he was a young man, and that was called Better the Devil You Know, ironically. But
Was that about his mum?
I don't really know. I
What was the song called?
Better the Devil You Know.
Better the devil. Was that? I'm sure Kylie.
Sonia sang it. Sonia sang it.
Yeah. I'm sure. Was it Kylie Minogue song as well?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't Kylie Minogue's song that my brother co-wrote, though. It was Sonia's. Sonia sang it in the Eurovision Song Contest, you know, and it won for England. It was held in Ireland that year. It was brilliant. When we seen him on the telly, you know, we really believed he was going to be this pop star, but unfortunately not to be. And I later learned that my mum had his recording studio stolen.
So see when your mum's phoning the police 250 times, the police come to your door in just over a year. Like, what was the police saying? Was there not enough of sort of wasting police time? Like,
Yeah, eventually the police, what happened eventually, you know, all the services were involved, all of them were baffled basically. And eventually the police said, you know, you're not allowed to ring anymore or we're going to arrest you. Basically, that it did come to that point. But then the social workers insisted, no, you must turn up, because my brother was extremely violent. So it was like, you know, they were all torn between to understand the situation. It was so complex, you know, and that was why I wrote the book. Basically, I didn't intend to write a book. I mean, I did say to my dad many years ago, I'm going to write a book about her when I'm older. She was so bad. And, but basically I was writing it to also process and have an understanding of my own life. I was so poorly, you know, I mean, I could never have came up here and spoken to you like I am now.
because your mum used to take you to the doctors every week.
She used to insist that I was poorly all of the time. She used to tell me I was poorly all of the time. And I believed I was poorly because my mum said, you know, or I would have symptoms of being poorly.
Is that to cover her own tracks just in case you die? In case she kills you and then she's got a kind of backup to say you're at the doctors every week. I told you she wasn't well.
Yeah, probably. And I think also she loved the attention. She loved the attention from even people in the street. You know, she would go into the bakers and say, oh, Daddy Brian's dying, me dad, you know, or Brian's ill or Karen's ill. It was just constant seeking attention all of the time, you know. I mean, she was even saying that the police officers fancied her when the police were going to the house. And they didn't, of course, but she was lapping up this. She had an incessant need for attention.
A compulsive liar also.
Compulsive, yes, absolutely.
And what was she saying to the doctors every week?
My daughter's ill or whatever, you know, and they were saying, no, she's just skinny, basically, you know.
You
But
said you had lumps.
yeah, she said I had a lump there. It was just me bones sticking out, and but she did actually starve us as well, but never in front of people. In front of people, it would be, oh, I love my children, and she always made out as if she loved us more than anything in the world. But indoors, and when people weren't there, it was a completely different person, you know.
Because she was telling the doctors you had to get naked all the time every week at the doctors also.
She would take us in and she would insist on an examination to be done, you know, or she would even examine me at home. And in the end, she started examining us herself, you know, and I didn't think nothing of it because I was used to it. I thought she was protecting us, you know, and over the top protective, which made me believe that my mum was, you know, she was the only person that loved me, basically. And she did that with regards to relationships as well. When I was married to me children's father, I told her that we were going to be making out our wills, and she insisted I make it out to her. My half had to go to her and his half to his family.
Why?
Well, in hindsight, I realise that there was a bit more to it than that, you know. She said to me he would never look after our children, mine and his children, and that she would, you know. And I began taking ill again at that point. And basically she wanted me away from him because she needed to own me completely. And I just think that I think my mum had other plans for me.
See, when the penny dropped with you, what age were you when you realised that your mum was the problem?
It didn't drop at a certain point. It was a really, really slow process. I think what happened was, as well, there's so much to it, and I could probably, if I was sitting thinking about it in a great depth and we're in a longer period of interview, it was gradual. So I was young when I thought, is something, is she doing something to me? How come, And then when I was, say, 19 and I was with a man who was like 17 years older than me, I was ill all of the time, but only when I was at her house. When I was with him, I was fine. And I didn't want to think anything wrong of me mum. So I know it's silly now, but I said to him, do you think there's something in me mum's water? Why am I only ill when I'm at me mum's house? And I'm all right when I'm here, So things gradually became unfolding. And I think what happened was, when I was married to my children's father, she purposely split us up, as she had with every relationship and friendship. The same with me and my brother. There was a pattern to it, And in a nutshell, I met Kenny and my mum started saying the exact same things. Kenny's doing this and Kenny's doing that. And I clicked and I thought, hang on a minute. She's using the same lines, and I was like shocked. And then one day Kenny was at this garage down in Dunstan, which is where we live, close to where we live, and he had taken the wrong card with him, so I actually had to ring the place and give a card number over the telephone. And my mum at that point said, "Oh, Kenny's beaten your brother up, Brian." And I said, "He couldn't have done, and he's robbed him." And I said, "He couldn't have done. He's not there, he's down in Dunstan." So I had caught my mum out on a lie. And I said, things started gradually unfolding. And basically, I had a witness as well. And this guy called Dave, he said, "No, Karen, it was your mum who robbed your brother." And things started gradually, everything my mum was doing was a lie. And it was, my brain was absolutely mashed, not wanting to think this. And then my brother actually rang us and said, "You better watch her. I'm fucking warning you, young'un. You better fucking watch her. She's coming over and she said she's gonna fucking poison Kenny." And I was like, "What? What?" And of course, Kenny was there and he heard the phone call and his mouth dropped open. My mouth dropped open and in she came. And she pretended to be nice to Kenny, and she was never nice to anybody I was with. She needed to own me completely. Every dot of me, my mind, my very thoughts, my everything. And she came in and she said, "Would you like a cup of coffee, Kenny?" In such a polite tone, and she was normally quite the opposite of that. And Kenny looked at me and I looked at him, and at the time we had a kitchen where he could go round one way and I could go the other, and Kenny said, "Yes, I'll have one." And he went one way and I went the other, and we caught her with the tablets in her hand, and that was a big wake up point to me, And then of course, obviously I was 48 years old when the social services came to the house and with the psychiatric nurse and said, in front of Kenny, "We believe your mum has Munchausen by proxy and you must never go near her ever again in your life." And I went, "Ever?" And they said, "Ever. And if you do, we'll take your children away."
Is that how much pull she had, like when you were 19 and you didn't want to believe that what she was doing, that you were so fearful of her and you still wanted to protect her? Is that how much sort of pull she had over you and how brainwashed you were towards her?
I think I was so indoctrinated because I'd been broken down from such a young age never to believe in me own self, or never to believe me own thoughts, and that everything she said was right, nothing I thought was right, and she did that purposely to destroy me and my brother. But if we ever had wanted to do anything of our own or whatever, she would make sure she created scenarios so they would fail. Every friendship, every relationship, everything, and yes, I think she did have that much pull. She had not just the pull, I think because we'd spent a lifetime as well needing to appease her and put her on that pedestal, and we'd didn't know anything else. Having a mom who wants to hurt you, who needs to hurt you, you grow up doing anything to stop that hurt and pain from occurring. And if that means just doing what you're told, that's what we were.
Did the doctors never take blood or anything to see if there was anything in your bloodstream? Did they ever do a blood test or
No.
swab tests? Because if you were ill all the time and there was no sort of pinpoint what it was?
No, not well. I remember once at Shotley Bridge Hospital, they did say, I want to keep her in and we'll do several tests. That was it. My mum had us out the bed and away, and after that, my mum was, the doctors are this, the doctors are that. Never trust doctors. They want to bury you. You can't trust any doctors. You can't trust social workers. You can't trust anyone, and we were captured, basically.
She was in full control of it all.
Total control, yes.
Was she getting a kick from it, or was her mind so gone she didn't know what she was doing?
She knew exactly what she was doing. She was getting a massive kick from it. If she saw someone in pain, I know it sounds horrible, but I can remember hurting my ankle once and I was crying, and I'd asked her to come over and get us a bandage, and I said, will you please go and buy us a bandage? And I said, she said, I don't have any money. And I said, there's some money on the table. And she said, how much? And I said, around about £5. She went, what if it's £5.50? I went, well, I'll give you the 50 pence. What if it's £6? I went, I'll give you the other pound. What if it's this? And she was doing it, and she could psychologically stunt you. We were basically imprisoned because of her mentally, and this psychological taunt and all of the time. And you could see the look on her face. She enjoyed it, I mean, even people in the street, there was one lady actually having treatment for cancer, and my mum turned around and said, I hope your chemo doesn't work. And she thoroughly enjoyed it. So she got off on it.
What was your mum's upbringing?
From what I know, I think she had a nice mum and dad. I know my granddad was quite strict. My grandma was lovely, very humble woman, lovely, my grandma. I loved my grandma. She was very nice. Nothing like my mum at all.
So where does it stem from, the hate?
Well, what I believe is that when my mum was took away, when she was actually sectioned, they did brain scans and they found that my mum's brain was completely scarred. And I got a phone call from the psychiatrists, and they said my mum's brain was scarred in exactly the same place as a psychopath. And I said, does this explain basically, would this explain the cruelty perhaps we've lived with her out with it, that she can't feel any empathy? And they said that's highly likely. These scars aren't new, so chances are it's been like that all of her life. She was actually a real psychopath.
See, when you were getting poisoned and you're going back and forth to doctors, like, was it all planned for her just to give you enough to keep you unwell? Like, if she wanted to kill you, she would have.
I think so, yes. I think she revelled in me being poorly, and I had 2 children of my own, and my son had a hole in the heart. He was born with a hole in the heart, and when I told my mum, she went, "Oh, brilliant." And I looked and I went, "Oh, brilliant, what the fuck's brilliant about that?" There's all sorts of things throughout my life that, you look back and go, my God, what was she? Because she wasn't a normal person.
See, when you were pregnant, were you still going round and visiting her?
Well, my brother came back from London after his recording studio was stolen. And basically, she had us running left, right, and centre, running after him. She rang me sometimes 50 times a day. I didn't have a life of my own, even when I wasn't with her.
You say your mum stole your brother's music equipment. How did she do that?
Well, because the full studio was taken, they would have had to have had a van. And my mum knew the most notorious characters, and I know other things as well. And I believe it was my mum. Plus, we recognised some of the equipment that came back home.
Why would she do that?
She wanted him back because she had invested in him to try and help him make it in the music world. We believe that was to help him make it in the music world. A normal mum would invest in their own children or offspring to help them. I believe they would, and but my mum didn't invest for him. She invested for herself. She wanted the glory of that. It was never for him. And the equipment landed, but she said, if you come home, I'll get you another studio. But it was the same equipment that turned up, and he recognised it, and so did I. But she'll have arranged that 100%. There was other things about me mum that, she controlled everything.
Money?
Everything.
What about your dad? Like, what's he saying at this point when you got a bit older? Did you ever have a discussion with him? Like how twisted she was? Or was he, again, just blocking it out?
When I was younger, my dad used to try and make a joke of things, and he would say, "Oh, she started," referring to her periods, pretending it was the monthly cycle and it was just a mood and this, that, and the other, but it wasn't. But I believe in hindsight that, looking back, he was trying to understand but make light of these aggressive outbursts she was having. As we got older, my dad would sit and cry and say, "My God," and I remember going into the bedroom. My dad was only 21 when he'd met her, and I believe he was indoctrinated as well. Being so young, she was some person, and my dad was lying in bed believing he had cancer. And it was when I met Kenny. Kenny said to us, "I don't believe your dad will have cancer." My mum had rang up and said in front of a friend of mine who was there, "Christine, your father has cancer." And I just burst out crying. And Kenny said, don't, she'll be making it up. And I was so badly indoctrinated. I went, "Oh, don't be stupid. Who would say that?" And he went, "Well, let's go over." And I went over and he said, ask your dad if he's seen the letter, And I went into my dad's bedroom and I said, "Dad, have you seen the letter from the hospital?" And he said, "No." And I went, "I don't believe it." He went, "What? What?" And my mum came up the stairs and she caught me saying this to my dad, and I was ordered out of the house immediately. But my dad really believed he had cancer. He was wasting away. He was lying in bed, getting thinner and thinner and thinner. He was psychologically, he was abused like that as well. And he believed his wife. She was so convincing, and I think my dad was worried sick, basically believing he was dying.
Because when when a doctor actually tells someone they've got cancer, their immune system drops 70% instantly.
Right.
Just with the power of words.
Yeah, right.
scientifically proven, like people can search this up, like as soon as you get told, that's why words are so powerful, and that's why a lot of people give in straight away, because they think that's enough. Like your dad,
Yes,
he wasn't told by a doctor, he was told by someone he trusted,
yes,
and he's just wasted in his bed thinking he's fucking dying with something that he's not got.
that's right. And my brother was poorly, and I'm sure she had him convinced he had cancer as well, because he was ringing the Samaritans constantly when he was living in her house. And basically, he was also the same as myself, kept completely to herself. And, he never escaped. And he was ringing Samaritans, and I've still got the phone bills. Some of the phone bills at the time you had to pay to ring Samaritans on mobiles. And some of the phone bills were 1,300 quid a month. And he was always keep saying he was going to commit suicide all the time, but she was relentless. And I can remember him one day being in the sitting room, and by this time, he was just a total wreck of a man, living with that abuse the same as me. I escaped at the age of 40 when I met Kenny. She couldn't get a fix so much, and my mum was looking at my brother, and you could see she was laughing at how bad my brother looked.
Was she poisoning your dad and your brother?
I believe she was, yes, because there was a man came to my house called Tommy, and he was a good friend of my mum and dad's, and he came to my home and said, Karen, I've got to tell you something. He says, your father came to my house and said, Tommy, I'm frightened. I really believe Isabel's poisoning me. He says, I was shocked, Karen, I was shocked. And then what happened as well, before my father was found brain injured, me dad came to my home and he said, Karen, I'm fucking terrified. And I said, what's wrong, Dad? He went, ring the social services and tell them. He says, I'm frightened for my life. He says, every time the social workers come to the house, your mother's telling them I'm going to commit suicide, he says, and I'm not. He says, I don't know what she's got planned for me. I don't know what it is, but please report it. And then my mother came in and he did, and he shut up, and I rang them. I did ring them. And I went back to that date, and because I have all the social services records as well. And instead of writing down what I'd said, they wrote on their records, Karen's concerned about her mother's ability to look after her father.
Do you believe that she would have killed you one day? Because she would have had many opportunities if she's making everyone ill. But like you say, it's the control of thriving off seeing people sick. Do you ever think that she would have just killed everyone off? Obviously, when she's going to doctors and phoning police on your brother and phoning social services on your dad, it's like she's covering her tracks, but she never ever followed it through.
I think she would have done. I think it was just a matter of time. I believe that she was getting worse and worse and worse, and I don't think it would have ended until she did. She was really becoming so bad over those years, it got worse and worse. And like I say, even the lady across the road, she couldn't cope with me mum anymore. My mum had gone to her house, and I was actually relieved when other people were seeing it. And my mum had walked past her window and she wanted to be in. She wanted to possess people. She was obsessive, and she'd walked past this lady's window and she wanted to be in, and the lady had said, oh, I'm just making the Ben's tea, Isabel. And my mum was angry. She couldn't stand anyone being happy. And the lady said, I heard your mum walk past my window when I wouldn't let her in. She says, and she said, happy fucking families. She says, and the next morning when I went out to me car to take me children to school, there was your mother brushing glass under me car tyres. And she knew what time I left with me children.
Why did your dad not leave her?
I believe me dad stayed initially because of us. I think he knew she was such a manipulative woman, he would never see us again in his life. he knew what he was up against. He knew she would even say that you'll never see these kids again. He knew we would never see us again. And I believe because she abused him that long, she broke him down so much. He was a broken down man as well. And he was baffled. I can remember going in one day and he was crying in the bedroom. And he said, Karen, your mum's mentally ill. And I said, Dad, my mum's been mentally ill all my life. And I just cried with him and cuddled him in.
Yeah, evil bastard. Like, it's mad, like, when this stuff sort of exists, you know, like how people go through it daily, torture, accept it, Stockholm syndrome. Your brother, was he ever violent towards you? Because in your book you says your brother was the exact same as your mother.
Yes, extremely violent. I think from we being youngsters, me trying to process everything and my whole life and the constant abuse. Like I say, I don't mean this horrible, but when my mother died, I felt relief. I felt grief for the life I'd lost. I felt grief for the mother I would never have, but I felt relief that I would never be in that position again in my life with me mum, and I couldn't cope any longer. But me brother, basically from me being very young, I think she worked through him and she put the crown on his head and she would order him to hit me. And I believe she was ordering him to hit me dad as well. And she was certainly creating scenarios between me dad and me brother. She would tell me brother, your father doesn't love you, he only loves her, which was fucking bullshit, excuse me language. But it was, my dad did love both of us. He really did. He was a good man, my dad, actually. Might have been authoritarian a bit, but that's as bad as it got. He had a good heart. He was a poet. He was a very, very good poet. He works in Oxford University. He was a classical poet. But yes, he did. And I believe that he won praise from me mum by doing some of these things. And I think my brother had time to reflect. And when I saw my brother, before he died, he admitted to me. He didn't confess when he was arrested. Nobody confessed. They said that my dad had fallen, but I knew in my heart my dad hadn't fallen. I knew in my heart. I knew because when me and my mum went to the hospital, because she came with us at that point, my mum leaned over the bed and she said, nobody hit you, Daddy, nobody hit you. And then she was trying to make sure my dad didn't breathe a word. And the nurse beside on the next bed, who was making the next bed, she looked shocked. She looked up like that. And my mum was asked to leave because my dad started howling. He couldn't speak. I didn't recognise my dad. He couldn't speak. He was all oxygen masks and wires and everything. And I didn't want to believe that was my dad. But I knew, because a while later, when he was moved to another hospital, he got a hold of me 2 fingers like that. And I knew that day he believed he was going to die. And he said, need to know. And I said, what, Dad? And he said, I need you to know. He didn't say it as clear as that, but I knew what he was saying. And I went, what, Dad? He went, 2. 2. I went, are you telling me it was both of them? He went, in cahoots. So I think, I know me dad, me mum was the biggest liar you'd meet in your life. But my father was an honest, truthful man.
So what happened with your dad? Like, why would they give him brain damage? Like, what was the purpose of it?
Well, my brother confessed to me before he died that he tried. What he said was, I tried to murder them for what they did to us. And I said it wasn't me dad. And he said, it just looked like that. And he said, I've been an evil bastard. He says, I hate them, but I never hated you. And I said, Brian, me dad did love you. Me mum turned me brother against me dad.
So how did they try and kill your dad? What did they try and do?
Me dad was brain injured. He'd been smashed across the head with a walking stick
Where?
in his own home.
And there was no evidence of it being your brother or your mum?
Well,
Where were they? Were
me
they
bro-
in the house when it happened?
my brother and my mum were the only two people in the house, but my mum had left and went to buy fish and chips and then went to her friend's house. And then she had said to her friend, what'll I say, and I got told that at a later date, obviously. And my brother was arrested, and then when my dad was rushed to hospital, my mum was later arrested as well, and they both said he fell. But I knew in my heart my father had not fallen. But when the CID come and they wanted to question me about what I thought had gone on, my brain was all over the place. I knew that it was my brother because he'd been being violent with my mum and dad for a long time. But I knew that it also could have been either of them, and my head was all over the place, but my brother actually asked us if I wanted to know what my dad's last words were.
What were they?
My brother was called Brian, the same as my dad. And he said, oh, Brian. And then my brother laughed. It was the worst pain I've felt in my life.
What about with you or your brother? Was there any sort of
No.
just physical abuse and mental abuse?
Yes, psychological abuse, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
everything.
What you thinking then after? What age were you when this happened to your dad?
I was in 2011. It was Halloween 2011.
How old are you now?
I'm 60.
Yeah, so 46.
Yeah,
How old was your dad?
79 years old.
Why wait till he's an old man?
Exactly, that's right.
Like if there was maybe your brother is older, and it's not that I'm sticking up for him by any
No,
means,
not at all.
but you don't know what your dad maybe put him through or anything. But why wait till he's an old man? Why not?
Exactly.
Why not address it in his 40s or
That's right.
like 50s? It's still old, but if you've still got any of those sort of issues, like did your brother ever say that anything went on between him and your dad?
Oh, right. No, not at all. Not one little bit. 100%. No.
Because your brother was your mum's favourite, your dad maybe your favourite, but maybe it was the roles were sort of reversed. Maybe there was more to it. Because why would you do that to a 79-year-old?
Oh, right. I see what you
know,
mean.
like maybe if
Yeah.
there was some sort of sexual abuse, like there's no age off limits. Like if he's 79, it doesn't fucking matter if you've done something sinister to a kid, but
Yeah,
I just think why a 79-year-old, why take a liberty like that?
exactly.
And you said your dad was a good guy.
He was a good guy, and I think basically, because I could never excuse what my brother's done either, never ever in a million years, never. But basically, I think my brother had I think he just flipped, and he had said he was going to murder them for a long time. He'd even rang the police himself and said, I'm going to murder my mum and dad. And the police has gone to the house and checked for any weapons, and there was none. There was no weapons apart from everything that was in the house, the walking stick and the hammers. My mum was sleeping with a hammer under her pillow in the end. And my brother and my mum, it was like two pieces of electric wire touching, and they were fighting to that degree. My poor dad, he was actually very humble. He would sit outside on his little stool and recite his poetry to passers by, and in a nutshell, I just couldn't get my head around it, because my brother would mostly say a lot of the time that he was going to murder my mother when it was my father. I got the shock of my life. Never in a million years would I have ever expected him to try to murder my dad. Prior to my dad being found brain injured in the house at home, where it was only my mum and brother present, my brother had tried to, well, I believe, murder them before that, because he'd left the gas on in the house ready for them coming in, and they were both smokers. And it was a friend of theirs, well, it was my Uncle Brett again, actually. He'd gone in the house first, and I don't know how, but it was just, he turned up at the house exactly the same time as my mum and dad. And he said, I can't fucking believe it. We've gone in. He says, just as well I went in first. He went, the whole house is stinking of gas. And he'd left all of the gas on, ready for my mum and dad walking in the house. So he was intent on murdering them. And what, like I say, when it was my dad.
Would they have ever murdered you?
I was frightened of him by this point, because over the years, he became like that. Over the years, it wasn't, he wasn't always like that. He was he was quite sensitive. Yes, he had been given reward for being abusive and violent with me as a child. My mum would even say to him when I was young, or say to me, you know what you're going to get, don't you? And I would say yes. And she would ring him, he was 19 and married, and I was only 13, and she would get him to come up from his marital home to beat me in the house, and then she would stand and watch and smirk. She ordered him to do that. She created him to become that creature, and if I was going to go out, for example, they would get a hold of us and throw us in a pond, a greasy, slimy pond, but...
And what age did your brother leave the house?
Leave home properly. I believe he was 19 when he got married.
Was that more abuse for you because he wasn't around?
Yes, I thought it would get easier, but it didn't. It got worse because my mum became insanely possessive, and there was only me to get it then as well, because she did abuse him as well, I mean, even when he came back from London, he was asleep on the floor and she poured boiling hot water on his back to burn him. For nothing.
What age did you get your first boyfriend?
I was probably about 16.
Did your mum know?
Yeah.
What did she do?
I got belted, I've told you to keep away from boys, basically, and I can remember some girls putting makeup on us, and I got wrong for even that, I wasn't allowed to do that. We were really kept like children, basically, not being allowed to grow and develop, becoming, it was do as she says.
And what was her connection with gangsters and stuff? A lot of the criminal underworld, how so?
Well, she was in the jewellery business and things like that. There was quite a few people she met on that scene, and then I'd met a lad when I was about 17, And he used to hide in the airing cupboard. I'd moved back home. And then I met a man, 17, the one who used to hide in the airing cupboard. He was like, just hated the atmosphere she brought. She was ordering him about and bullying him and this, that and the other. And then I met a guy when I was 19. He was 17 years my senior. And my mum liked to be around gangsters, wheeling and dealing and things like that. Anything she could. My mum didn't have any feeling for anything. Her only love was money. Only love, nothing else. No, she would appear that way and she would give that impression, but that was the act. And
Did she have any other men? Any other boyfriends or any bits in the side or anything?
she did actually, yeah. She did. She loved men.
That must have been the only thing she loved, the fucking nutcase.
Yeah, but she didn't love them genuinely. She was just obsessed, I think,
Using them.
Obsessed, and anything she couldn't have, she wanted, She actually followed the bank manager home one day and he had to stop his car and say, will you stop following me home? It was like, whoa, I'm going to have him.
Was that maybe to rob him as well, though? To maybe try and
You would never know with her.
to try and get an in to then, like, as much as psychotic and a fucking nutcase, like, there's still a lot of scheming behind her madness. Especially if she loved money, her in would have probably been, seduce this man, find out his ins and his outs, the codes, everything, and then rob the
probably.
bastard.
She'd stop at nothing, What? That's not in the book.
Who? So she robbed someone?
Our own mother.
Yeah, but we can speak about whatever you want. Like, we should.
It's all right. I don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want to mention that. No, you don't need
Not
to.
for relatives.
Yeah, we can edit that anyway. But, so was she very in depth of her scheming where she would have robbed anyone? We should have done anything.
Oh, I think basically, she would even make a joke of everything and say, how many beans make 5, don't you? And I would say, how many? Young, innocent. She'd say 2 in each hand and 1 up your arse. Always keep 1 that they don't see. That was her. But I would laugh. She was actually quite humorous at times as well. And you would think, was like, and then she'd turn and you'd think, what have I done? What? You couldn't understand it. She was a hard woman. Very, very hard,
Do you think she had ever killed anyone?
I don't really know the answer to that question, but I know she's capable of it.
Because even in the book, even the photo here in the front of the book, there's like, I watched a movie called Monster.
Did you really?
Charlene Theron, and the woman used to be a prostitute. She used to sleep with the men, but then after that she used to kill them all. But they've got the same sort of eyes, dead behind the eyes,
Right.
And she eventually believed her own hype and believed what she was doing is because she was abused as a kid, so it gave her the right to kill other people.
Yes.
It's a mad movie. And she's done many interviews, that woman, where she ended up getting the death penalty.
Did she?
Yeah. But it's the same sort of eyes, like dead but crazy.
They were dead, yes. I noticed that about me mum as well, I mean, this woman went to church, and I was told God would never love me because I whistled. I was convinced God didn't love me because I whistled. This was from being very, very little, maybe 4 or 5 years old. She would go to church and confess, and I would say, Mum, you're not meant to go to church and be nasty when you come out, and she would say, shut your fucking mouth. And she just basically, she was just a proper hypocrite, really, and she would say things like, the Lord helps those who help them fucking selves. She had an answer for everything. My dad called her the Queen of Retort, basically,
What was she going to church for?
have her fucking sins forgiven. Excuse me language, but that in her eyes, that was it.
She'd have her sins
Yeah, that's
forgiven.
it. And then she'd come out and do the exact same thing, you know. It was like, what?
Did she ever tell you she loved you?
She told us she loved us every day.
Did she?
She did. Every day she told me she loved me, sometimes several times a day. And I said to her, Mum, how can you love me when you do things to us? You do, you're nasty all the time. And she used to say, I can't help it. I still love you. And that was the trauma bond. You see, I developed a trauma bond with my psychopathic mother from being a baby. I didn't have a choice.
But it's sad that as well, if someone's mind goes, they know it's went, but they're just not in control. Do you think she had that as well? I know you say she didn't have any empathy, but do you believe that she really knew that she was unwell herself, or was she just total in denial?
I think it was too hard to understand her, because at the same time I did say to her, Mum, why do you do this to me? Why do you hurt me? Why did you treat me quite differently to my brother? Because she hurt me more and more and more. All of the time I was the main victim. And she turned round and said, I said, if you didn't want me, why didn't you just put us into care? And she said, who the fuck would want you? Basically, I think,
I'm laughing because it's fucked up.
it is, and I said, well, basically, she wanted to hurt so much, she would make an excuse for it. So when she said she couldn't help it, I thought that was just an excuse for doing it. She tried to drive us into a bus one day, and I thought, fuck, she's going to kill us. And I rang me dad, because I said, Mum, you better stop, you better stop, you better stop. Well, this far off the bus. And she loved instilling fear, and I rang me dad and I said, Dad, I'm really sorry about this. I went, but honestly, I said, I've had to get a hold of me mum in the car and stop her when she nearly got us into a bus, And he said, oh, don't worry, Pet. He went, that's a fucking party piece. She does the same with me, She was something else.
What was it like leaving the house for the first time when you moved out? Was that difficult to get away from her?
Well, it was difficult, but it was necessary, and it was a relief to get away from her anytime. I mean, I was only 15 and I would sleep in the woods without a tent, in a sleeping bag or without a sleeping bag, just to be sleeping out of my home so that I wasn't in her presence.
Why did the social workers not help you? Surely there must have been signs there that she was a nutcase.
No, because we were indoctrinated not to say a single word.
But surely they must be trained as well. I think they're more trained now to see telltale signs that kids are going to lie. I think back then no one was asked.
That's right, and social workers weren't involved with me at all in my life until about 6 years before my dad was brain injured. We were completely controlled and owned by her.
See, when your son was found with a hole in his heart, could that have been with the stuff that she was poisoning you with all those years?
No, I think it was just how he was born. Just a congenital birth defect, I believe.
Just one of those things?
Yeah, just one of those things.
How was it? Because I know you were still in her life, a big part of your own life and her life. Like, you were in her life right up until she took her last breath. But what was it like when you had your son for the first time? Was it twins you have?
I've got twin boys, yes, Stephen and Christopher, and I've got to say I absolutely love them. They're brilliant, and they are the reason I'm still here today.
Were you ever worried that you could have ended up like her?
Never. I used to say consciously as a kid, I must have been so conscious of it, of how she was from being little. I used to say, I'll never be like you. I'll never be like you. I never want to be. Children admire their parents normally and say, I want to be like my mum or my dad. And my sentence was, on the contrary, I never want to be like my mum when I grow up. And not knowing the depth and how sinister she was,
Were you nervous taking your son around her, your twins around her? And why would you take them around her?
Yeah, well, that's it to her. I wouldn't, the twins went over a couple of times, and basically I couldn't leave my twins among that. They weren't brought up like that, and I was very conscious of how violent she was as well, so no, I wouldn't leave them with her. I would be there at the same time, of course, I saw a lot of what went on, but if it went up, I was out the door.
How did she treat your sons? She treat her grandkids better than anyone.
Yeah, she wanted to appear like the loving grandmother, and even my brother said, be careful, mind, she's after your kids. And I knew what he meant by that, because how she had controlled us, she was trying to say to my children, take over my position as mother, and she was trying to win them over into gaining the trust in her. But by this time, I was developing the ability to see through her, little bits at a time, very gradual, but never to let her be that influencing person with me two sons. So when the social workers came to the house and said, your mum's saying that she looks after your boys, and I said, no, not a chance. No, she does not. But I had horrendous anxiety because I thought, my God, are they going to believe her? Or are they going to believe me? And she would be so convincing. I was afraid. And I was a total nervous wreck thinking, what is me mum saying?
Possibly turn your sons against you and your sons move in with her.
She wanted to be the carer no matter what. She needed to be the saviour, but I was developing the ability to not let her, I was determined and never to let her have that control over my two sons.
So you're still sort of oblivious to it all. You know that she's fucking lost her nut, but you're still going back for more punishment. You're still kind of going back for more abuse mentally and psychologically. Like there's still, and that's again with the trauma bonding and the Stockholm
Yes.
syndrome and all these
Still
words.
indoctrinated, yeah.
Kind of used. But when did, obviously you've met Kenny. Kenny's just had a heart transplant recently. He's fucking lost his toes. Like is non-stop. But it's when you met Kenny that you started looking into things differently. Was obviously as a man as well who's not in that circle, you've got telltale signs, when you walk into a room. Well, I do personally, you do know who's fucking real and who's not, and who's just
Yes.
fucking right. There's something just not quite right there.
You would.
But these people, they're very, like you say, they're very clever, because what they do
Absolutely.
is turn people against the ones who are pointing them out,
That's right.
And,
That's right.
that comes with years of just interviewing people and speaking to people.
You
get
know, yes,
enough
that's right.
understanding, but it's the one when you start calling them out for their bullshit, it's the stuff that they say against the people who speak out against them, and it's the worst of the worst. So that's why a lot of people go back into their shell. That's why a lot of people hide, because they think, fuck that, I'm not going there, because they'll do whatever they can to try and cover their tracks.
Mm-hmm.
When did you started really asking the questions though? Like what age did you start thinking, like, I've been poisoned, I've been beaten all my life, I've been abused all my life, my brother's turned against me? Like when did you really start to dig deep?
I think I really only began to recover after she died, because she was no longer in my head. So I wasn't getting the 50 phone calls a day. I wasn't getting her views, her opinions, her reasons, her excuses. And the social workers had said the term Munchausen by proxy. And I didn't want to believe that of my mother, ever. But they also said she was an extremely complex picture. And I believe that although I was putting things together bit by bit, like for example, when my brother said, you better fucking listen, young, and she's coming over to poison Kenny, I was like, fucking hell, what's going on with her? How dare she even do that? I couldn't, there's not a chance that anything else could be what she was. I had the diagnosis, and I realised, and I thought, my God, they were right. And I didn't want to believe them, but Kenny had obviously helped as well, because he was a lot more streetwise than me, because I was this indoctrinated person who she'd had control of all of my life. And I wasn't streetwise. I didn't, it's, if you're not a thief, you're not going to think like a thief. Do you know what I mean? And I was really, I feel embarrassed that I was so badly indoctrinated, but I knew nothing else. If you live with the wolves, you'll act like the wolves. You think, you're in that situation, and that it was a very tight knitted family unit, and none of us could see outside of it, but nor could the social workers for 6 years.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about, especially someone could be in your grasp just after a couple of weeks or a couple of phone calls, never mind years and years, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of abuse, like people can be brainwashed instantly by a conversation, never mind years and years of torment.
That's right. And when my dad was brain injured, I mean, I could never forgive it in a million years, because my dad he was my hero, he really was. And I believe he stayed to protect me mother from me brother. And I believe that he didn't really understand the extent of what he was living with me mum, the rose-coloured spectacles, the lot. But I knew she could not stop hating, not putting two and two together and realise that, these were all obsessions, but understanding a full personality, lots of obsessions. And in a nutshell, I said to the social workers, watch her mind, watch her. I went, she's got to hurt no matter what, she's got to. And they allowed her to go to visit me dad in the brain injury unit, and she got caught by the nurses. And even though my dad was in his wheelchair, she had fisted him in the face, and one nurse said she had fisted him about 6 times till he was pouring of blood, in his wheelchair, brain injured, and she still had that need to hurt. And when I went to, and then I said, listen, when are you going to actually wake up and listen to us? She's got to hurt no matter what, you've got to take it in. And they said, I'm sorry, she'll never ever be allowed to be on her own within the same vicinity, I mean, they must have been giving her some privacy with him, with it being his wife. And they never allowed that again. And my mum had a supervisor, and I went up to the brain injury unit, and Kenny was parking the car, and I was standing there, and there was like an archway, and my mum was sitting on the seat with her supervisor, because they wouldn't let her go on her own anymore after catching her hitting him. And basically the supervisor went, oh, you look like an angel standing there, because I was under a lovely arch with flowers, And my mum went, oh, my beautiful daughter. That's a posh, that's a pretentious voice, that came out quite often when she was wanting to con somebody. And she came over to us, and whilst Kenny was parking the car, Kenny was walking up, my mum put her arms around us, and thinking nobody would hear, she cuddled me in, and she went, I've got to hurt somebody. I was actually fucking terrified of my own mother. I was terrified of her. And I jumped back, and it was that hot breath in my ear. And I thought, my God, I'm literally shaking. I mean, my brother actually believed she was possessed. And I think I was there at that point, And I was thinking, my God. And Kenny went, what the fuck did she say to you? And I told him what she'd said. And he went, what are you doing? And I was supposed to be seeing my dad. I went, I'll have to go. I'll have to go. I'll have to go. I was a total nervous wreck. And she went, come and sit here. Because the supervisor went, come back, Isabel. The supervisor knew that she'd said something which had alarmed me. You could see by my face, obviously, I'm jumping out the way of my own mother. And my mum, the forever actress, she went, come on, sit here. And I went, no. And I just couldn't even speak, And Kenny, like I say, Kenny said, what the fuck did you? And I went, get us away. Get us away. He went, you're not going to see your dad. I went, I'll have to come tomorrow. And I went home. And the penny dropped. But you know what, James, being very honest, I'd heard it from the horse's mouth. And when you hear it from the horse's mouth, it means so much more. And that was my acceptance. The same as when my brother said, I tried to murder them for what they did to us. Prior to that, he had maintained the idea that my father had fallen. He wouldn't admit it, nor would my mother. And in my heart, I needed to hear it from him. Even though I knew in my heart, I needed to hear it from him.
Did your mum drink? Take
No.
tablets?
I wish she did drink. Might have cheered her up.
Did you never think about putting some fucking whiskey in her soup?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Cheer the bitch up.
Aye. Aye, that's it. No, shit.
Did you ever, sorry for
She didn't.
laughing
That's
and
all
making
right.
jokes,
It's all right.
but
She
sort of
was.
what
She was something else.
that's how I
Seriously.
kinda get through shit is sometimes.
Aye, yeah. So do I,
okay.
James. It's serious. I had to have a sense of humour as well, you know.
What is it? Is it facetious? I think making a joke out of
No, it's
something
all right.
stupid,
I
so
don't mind
apologise,
one bit.
but
No, don't apologise.
did you ever think about killing her? Or were you just so fragile by it?
No, I wouldn't ever kill anyone. But I can remember in the hospital, I wouldn't do it, but in the hospital when she leaned over my dad's bed and she said, nobody hit you, Daddy, nobody hit you. And she was ordered out and I had to go out of the same door. I can remember feeling very tempted when there was a set of stairs there and I thought, no, Karen, don't. Just keep your hands to yourself. She is not worth it, you know. It was horrendous, you know, because that was my dad and he was howling, you know.
Did you ever get closure on who done that to your dad? Did anybody ever say? Did your brother admit it?
Yes, that's what
On his deathbed? He admitted on his deathbed?
well, not on his deathbed. He was actually, well, I mean, he'd been given a month to live. Well, he'd been given 3 months to live and he only had a month left to live when I saw him. And basically, he admitted to me that it was him, you know. But like I say, I hadn't seen him.
Did your dad ever say it was your brother? I know he held your fingers and says the two of them were working together, but
I think my dad thought that they were in cahoots because they'd both been there and he was very much like, these bastards have done this to me. That's what I believe my dad will have thought.
so your dad didn't see anybody doing it?
Or my dad will have seen it.
But he never told you who it was?
He just said in cahoots. But we knew
Could it have been your mum who done it though?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, I did think at the time, fucking, who's, you know, my head was a shed and it was like, what on earth? You know, but I knew in my heart it was my brother because he was threatening to kill them. He was always violent. He was beating me dad up on several occasions. And my mum was antagonising that and creating that kind of situation. And, she, you know, it was really, really bad in that house. My mother was sleeping with a hammer under a pillow. But no, I knew it was my brother. We went to a meeting at the hospital as well after my dad was brain injured. And my brother came in to the meeting with me mum and I went in with Kenny. And basically in that meeting, my brother came in and he was pissed and he had a recorder and he came in and he put the recorder on the table like that and he went, I'm Brian. I've had 365 bottles of whiskey this year and I'm going to look after me daddy. And everybody looked at him and the nurse directly opposite me, she couldn't even lift her head up. You know, she was going like that. You could tell she was actually laughing. I think they were shocked. And my mum said to me brother, pack it in or I'll cave your fucking head in. And my brother turned round and he went, "She did me daddy." And she went, "I never did your fucking daddy. You did your daddy." And the social worker butted in and she said, "Isabel, you weren't there." She says, "You shut your fucking mouth. I was there." She says, "And I saw everything. It was a tiny little tap." And Kenny said, "Some tap." And that was it. I didn't know where to go. But yeah, I knew it was my brother who did it.
Yeah, it's all a bit confusing, that, innit? Just
Yeah.
two of them are evil. But what happened with the relationship with your brother after that then?
With me.
Yeah, and your brother.
Well, I became my dad's voice and I wasn't going to let my dad down. I wasn't going to desert him. I knew what had gone on. I knew those two were there. And basically, I never saw my brother for 10 years. You know,
What made you go back and see him when he was dying?
I actually had a dream. I don't even know how, I dreamt that my mum and dad came to us in my dream. And I dreamt my mum and dad were talking to us. My mum came into my dream first and she said, "You've got to go and see Brian." And I was just, in my dream, I was just sitting staring at her. And then my dad came to us in my dream as well and he said, "You must go. He's going to die soon." And I knew where he was. And I went over and he came out and I barely recognised him. He was living in a flat in Newcastle and the door was missing off the house and it was flat on the stairs. He had severe alcoholic, and the door hadn't been on for over a year, the neighbours said. And I seen him and I said, "Are you all right?" Because I was trying to weigh up which way. I mean, I kept my distance because I was still afraid of him in case anything went wrong, and he went to attack us or anything like that. And he said, "I've been given 3 months to live." But I wasn't quite sure whether to believe him or not because I think it was something he'd said regularly because he believed he was dying all of the time, with him being around my mum and my mum saying he was dying all of the, it was very, very complex. So he did have bad mental health as well. And he said he's been given 3 months to live. And I went, how long ago were you told that? And he said 2 months ago. And sure enough, he lived the month.
How was that relationship for that month?
It was really hard because I was facing the man who tried to kill my father. And my father was passed away by that time. Because I would never have gone near, because if I saw my brother, I couldn't see my dad, obviously.
Who made you choose?
Social workers insisted that if I had anything to do with Brian, I wouldn't be allowed to see my dad. So I didn't see him at all, but I wouldn't have seen him anyway because I was so devastated at what he'd done.
Why social workers involved? Why not coppers?
Social workers and the police were involved, but nobody was charged because my dad was brain injured and it couldn't go into court.
How was his memory after it?
My dad's memory.
Yeah.
He was in a very, very, very bad way. It took a good couple of years before he could manage like 1 to 2 words, basically. Or he might,
That bad?
oh, aye, very bad. Yeah, very, very bad. Before he was brain injured, he was an eloquent speaker, at the English language. He was offered a professorship down in Wales. He was a very intelligent man.
You says he was a poet?
A poet, yeah, he wrote poetry. And he was a very sensitive, feeling man as well, very emotional. But after that, he wasn't able to, he couldn't have been cross-examined in a courtroom to give evidence because the brain injury was so severe. And in a nutshell, my dad, I think obviously my dad was devastated, you know. I mean, I used to say to him, Dad, I love you so much. And he wanted to, I know he wanted to say, I love you as well. But instead of saying, I love you a lot, or I love you, or what, you know, whatever, he used to say very. And I knew that meant he loved me very much.
In the last month then, so obviously you're going to have that rage and bitterness that your mum and brother who's done that to your father, but what was it like the last month? Could you try and forgive your brother? Because as much as he's evil as well, it's still difficult because you've seen the life that he was raised in, you know, you've seen who he's become. Like, the brain will program you into anything around your surroundings, you know, and people who become evil, they weren't born evil.
Yeah, I know. I think, being honest, if I was to try and sum it up, I believe my mum was born evil, but I don't believe my brother was. I believe that my brother had more feeling than my mum, because I don't believe my mum had the ability to feel any empathy. I believe my mother was the mother that couldn't love. And I mean that sincerely. And I think my brother regretted it, because my brother, I said to him, he came outside, and I found it hard to look at him because he looked so thin, and I knew he was mentally unreachable, very, very, very pale and affected by everything. Of course, he was an alcoholic and had been for a long time. And he actually thought I was somebody else until he saw me face, and he got a shock, because I believe he thought he would never see us again. And I don't think he would have done if my dad hadn't come to us in my dream. If my mum had said it, I wouldn't have went. But it was my father who came to us in my dream, and because it was my dad, I woke Kenny up and I said, I'm gonna go and see him, because my dad came. And I said, Brian, I'm writing the book. And he said, make sure you tell it all. He says, I know I have a cross to bear, and I know what I've done, but make sure you tell it all. So I think he wanted me to give some light to our lives. And I think he'd had time to reflect. My mum would never have reflected. She would never have looked at herself or took any accountability ever. That was not in her at all. And I said to him, I couldn't have seen you anyway. I know I've been not seeing you for a lot of years, but I couldn't have seen you anyway. Otherwise, I wasn't allowed to see me dad. And my dad had to come first. I needed to be my father's voice. And he went, that's all right. He went, you know, I understand. He went, but he says, she put the fucking tablets in the glass and me potato, you know. And he remembered that for 10 years. For 10 years, he'd held on to tell us again. And I said, I know what she'd done to us. And I said my dad was paralysed as well. He wasn't just brain injured, but he was paralysed. And my brother went like that, and I know it hurt. And I knew he felt something. And you know what? As much as he tried to murder my dad, I knew he felt something. And that meant something to me. I'm not forgiving him, but I'm putting it into perspective. But it's hard to forgive too when someone's tried to murder your dad. Believe me, it's hard to face that person. But I did, and I faced him. And I came away with the peace of knowing that he had admitted it to me and my sister. And we both lived a lot of pain and suffering because of how our mother was. It gave us some peace, James. It didn't take it away.
When was your mum diagnosed?
The Munchausen by proxy.
Yeah.
Well, I was 48 years old, and then she was sectioned and taken away, you know. And
So who diagnosed her then? How did it come about?
the social workers had getting a team in. I found the paperwork about a year and a half before my dad was found brain injured. And there was notes there, so they'd been looking into it a long time.
40 years too fucking late though. Look at the damage it's been done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
You know?
that's right.
So what happened when she got sectioned?
She got put into a unit for people with complex mental health. And basically, my brother went in to see her in there, and he got chased out because he was laughing at her being locked up. He was pleased she was locked up.
I was probably started laughing.
Yeah, he did, and he was saying he was laughing and calling her an old bastard.
Yeah.
So he got made to leave, you know, and before he left, he asked for some money for a bottle of whiskey, you know, and that was him to a T. But better the devil, you know.
So he was laughing at again. It's not that I'm sticking up for your brother, but again, like, imagine your mother trying to poison you. He's a bit older with the drugs, and then seen a lot with your mum turning him against your dad. And like, it is sad to see two kids being brutally tortured, and he's obviously paid the price for it by doing that, because like you say, he did feel as well, which was important to make sure that he wasn't like your mum.
That's right.
You know?
I think there was a part of us.
But then again, he fucking beat her at a 79-year-old, so there's not really any sympathy.
It's really
hard to
hard.
balance it out. I'm just trying to figure it out from all aspects, and just try to give it a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know, instead of, it's just try to give an understanding of the whole picture for people watching or listening. You know, it's not taking sides, but
Yes.
I can understand why he started laughing. We've seen your mum, he tried to kill everyone.
Yes.
You know, and it's probably a sort of relief for him. But like you says, his mother and son were identical as well, so to be laughing as well shows you he's laughing at her misery. But on the other hand, I can see why he's laughing.
Of course, and then still having the trauma bond himself, as he was leaving this place where my mum was sectioned, he said to the nurses, "You better look after her or I'll fucking kill you." So he still had the trauma bond as well of wanting to, you know what I mean? It was very complex. Can you imagine what my brain was like as well?
Did you visit your mum?
No, I was totally agoraphobic at the time. I couldn't go there. I was so affected by everything. I didn't want to leave my house barely, you know.
So what were you diagnosed with and end up?
Well, I had agoraphobia and still do. Well, I mean, Charles Darwin had agoraphobia and he travelled the world, but you know, it's basically the amount of stress I was living under, basically.
So what is that? You can't leave the house?
It's supposed to be a fear of open spaces, so they say, but it's more like a panic disorder with me, basically, you know, and I have germ phobia and complex PTSD, which you can imagine at the very least.
Yeah, it's only minor, man.
I know.
Fucking, it's mad, but it's is that what you then, a phobia of germs and all the other stuff, can't leave the house and spaces, but that's totally understandable.
Yeah, but I mean, not just that, having a mother like that, you know, you're paranoid of everything. You think, what, you know, who can you trust if you can't trust your mother? You
I'm
know,
surprised fucking Kenny stuck by all those years, Kenny boy. You know what?
I know, so am I. So he got more entertainment off me than he ever did in Franklin. Do you know what I mean? He said he thought he'd met everyone being in there. You know, he's. I mean, we make a joke. My dad chose the name of my book many years ago when I was younger, before he was brain injured. I used to say with my mum being, you know, these outbursts of violence, aggression, and or, you know, her behaviour was absolutely horrendous and so unmanageable. And I said, me dad, you know, one day I'll write a book on her. You know, this was before all of this happened, the brain injury and everything else. And basically, me dad was sitting on his little stool outside of the house. And me mum had bent down to his ear, and me dad was crying when he was telling us what had happened. And she said, I hate you. In his ears, I wish you would die. That's what he said. She was saying, he was going, why does this woman do this to me? Why is she treating me like this? You know, and he was baffled by it. And me dad said, and Roy came along the street, and she went, oh, hello, Roy. I'm just giving him a kiss. He went, Karen, if you ever write a book, call it Poison Kisses. And I remembered that until I brought this book out, you know, but we had a standing joke at home when I met Kenny. I said, I'm going to write a book, you know, at some point. And
Yeah, just speak Kenny. You can.
yeah, Kenny was saying, you've got to write your book, you know, but I wasn't mentally well enough because my head was a shed, you know. And basically, Kenny and I used to have a joke, and I used to say, should I call it Saved by an Armed Robber?
So for anybody that doesn't know, your partner Kenny's been in the jail, he's done a bit of porridge.
He did,
He knows
yeah.
everybody. And like we were speaking off camera with Kenny, like when you know criminals, they're not as dangerous as these sort of
Oh, definitely
twisted people.
not.
Like criminals are like a bit deranged and they make a lot of mistakes. Again, it's because of their upbringing. But when you go this far of being the scheming kind of
Yeah.
psychotic way, that's a different level. Criminals will take each other out just for an argument, a bit of ego, but the depths of the poison of a mind is it can destroy a whole fucking army, you know.
Oh, absolutely. And when you have a mother who on an everyday basis wants to play with your mind, you'd be very lucky to come out of that. And believe me, I've been very lucky, because when I first met Kenny, I couldn't even have me breathing pattern wasn't even correct. I used to sit like that, and I was in a bad way, you know. I mean, she had a dog, and my ex, I don't get on with him, but give him his due, he came to the house and he went, what the fuck? The dog didn't even stand up. It used to crawl across the floor and piss itself. And he said, what she done to the dog? And I said, she's treated the dog like she's treated us. She was constantly hitting the dog as well. She needed to hurt. She had an obsession to hurt. She would stop at nothing, you know. And when I met Kenny, I was 40. She came in the house, and I knew by this point that I wasn't allowed a boyfriend, or she would do something to split me up from that boyfriend. So I had learned to not let her know, and I had said to her, don't come over later because I'm going to have an early night. Well, I wasn't. Kenny was coming around, and she was wider than me, believe me.
Yeah, that's the old telltale signs.
yeah,
Or if it's
that's
something that
it,
says
yeah.
they've got their bed early, you're thinking,
Yeah.
lying bastard.
Yeah, that's it. And
Yeah.
in she came, and she stood there and she went, so what's going on here? And I think that was one of the times I stood up to her and I went, what the fuck's it got to do with you? You know, and we had a beautiful glass window, and I thought, should I? You know, but she walked away with her tail between her legs, and my dad turned round and he went, good on you.
Was
You
your
know,
dad there?
my dad wanted us to have a life. Yes, he did. He did.
So what was it like standing up for her for the first time?
It was great. Kenny sniggered as well. What were you going to say?
Yeah, just say it, Karen.
Pardon?
Chrissy?
Oh, yeah, and on another occasion,
We finished this one. We finished. What was it like sticking up for her, sticking up to her for the first time?
oh, it was brilliant. Oh, it was brilliant. It was like, yes, you know, I'm I wanted to become a person and have a life, you know. I was an adult. I was 40 years old. And there she was, believing she could still keep me in that place. You know, I mean, I had boyfriends, but she'd managed to break every friendship and relationship I'd ever had in my life, you know, and she did it by creating scenarios or saying that the boyfriend was doing this or that or the other. I mean, even me brother had a girlfriend as well. She was really good with me brother, and she was helping him financially and that, and believing in his music and this, that, and the other. You know, me mum would insult anybody, and this woman had said to me brother, to me mum, "Oh, Brian's doing really well. You know, his music's coming on great, and I'm helping him." And she went, "Oh, good. Well, if he makes it, you'll afford a facelift."
Where did she get the posh accent from?
She put it on. She put it on. You know, even when she had her own shop, her business, she would pop on a wig and go into wholesales and call herself Angelique.
Did your dad know that she was fucking around?
No. He cried. He cried, suspecting it.
Yeah. So what about Chrissy? Who's Chrissy?
Oh, right, yeah. Well, you talk about, you know, when you were speaking to me earlier and you said you can walk in a room and you know who's being real with you or not. It's the same, isn't it, with an aura? You get a good aura or you get a bad aura, a bad feeling, bad energy from someone. My mum's energy was horrific. And I mean horrific. When I met Kenny, he said, you know, he'd met people in the prison, murderers, rapists, terrorists, the lot. And he said, I've never met anyone as bad as your mum, and especially her aura. And I didn't feel offended because I knew he was right. It was absolutely correct. I totally agree. She had a horrendous aura, you know, it was oozing from her. But she could also change that and try and, you know, manipulate and come across nicey. But I knew obviously when her tone was changing and this, that and the other. And we were in the house one day and there was a guy came in and he was called Chrissy. He was a friend of ours. And basically, my mum had gone into my side door into my kitchen. And Chrissy said, "Who the fuck's gone in the kitchen?" And I said, "Why?" And he went, "Who is it?" I went, "It's me mum." And he went, "I've fucking zapped." And I went, "What?" He went, she's an
Energy
aura
vampire.
twacker." I went, "An aura twacker? What's that?" He says, "I'm absolutely drained. I'm going to have to go home and lie down."
See when she was in, see when she got sectioned, what were you thinking then? How were you feeling?
I don't know what I thought. I think I was just so shocked at everything that had gone on.
So how long did you not see her for? Was there a period that you never seen her after your dad? Because you never seen your brother for 10 years.
Yeah, my mum was sectioned. I can remember saying to the social workers, "You've taken me mum away now. When she's this age, she's probably like going to be dying soon. She should have been took away when I was little, really, you know. So like, why now?" I couldn't understand how severe or how dangerous it was, really. And basically they couldn't take that risk. And I was in the process of being like processing everything, you know, not, and I rang her every day, but no, I didn't say I didn't go over there. I couldn't. I couldn't.
When your mum was dying, it's in the book, I'm not giving too much away, but you end up going and meeting your mum. Like, what was that decision?
Um, I think I wanted to say goodbye. And I think I wanted I think I wanted to be just who I am. And because I'm not like her, I think I wanted to give her my forgiveness before she went. And that was more about who I am rather than what she'd done or who she was. Because I would never get the chance again, would I? Do you know what I mean? And I suppose really it was me mother and I knew nothing else. It's the mother I was given. And the mother I wish I hadn't been given. But I felt as if I needed to go because she was leaving the earth and I was never going to get the chance to see anything ever again.
Did you ever get any closure with her? Did she ever apologise? What did she say?
I'm going to laugh because she had no emotion whatsoever. And I was in the same room as her and she said, sorry. And that was it. And that's how she said it, as if she'd stood on the cat's tail. There was no feeling there whatsoever. None at all. In fact, if I was going to sum my mother up in 2 sentences, how she was when she was dying and she was lying in bed, I remember the nurses ringing us and they had me mum on the telephone and they wanted to, for me to speak to her. And me mum in front of people, this is how she was. I said, hello, mum. You know, I just want to tell you I love you before you go, even though it was still hard. It was still me mother. And she said in front of the nurses, don't you ever reproach yourself, Karen. You've been a beautiful daughter. And I thought, well, it's not me who has anything to reproach myself for, but I listened. And the nurses, I could hear the nurses in the background and they went, oh, you know, as you would, a dying mother speaking to their daughter. But my mother, always for the audience, she gave them what they wanted to hear. And the next day, I remember thinking, I need to speak to her again. She was nice. And I lived to pray for that nice mother on an everyday basis. And even at the end of her life, I was still living to get that nice mother that we had so much wanted all of our lives and couldn't get. And I rang her the following day and by God, she never let us down. She was the mother I'd known, who I'd really known, and this time the nurses weren't listening. And I said, Mum, I love you. She went, I love you. Horribly like that. And I thought, oh no, the nurses aren't there. She's going to be herself, her true self, you know, the one they wouldn't see and nobody else would see. And I said, please, ma'am, not now, because I knew she only had days to live. I said, I'm doing me best. Meaning, don't hurt us. Please don't hurt us before you go. And she said, your best's never been good enough. And she managed to hurt us before she went. That sums my life up with my mother.
Do you think it would have been easier, though, that she acted like that before she died? Because if she was being nice, do you think it could have been possibly more confusing for you? If you were wanting that nice mother and then maybe you got 2-3 days of it?
I think really, in all honesty, it helped us accept what she really was. And that to me was if she could hurt us even on our deathbed, then she's the one at fault and had the problems, not me, because I was the bigger person. I forgave the person who'd hurt me all of my life.
How was it when she actually passed? Was it closure or was it sadness? Bit of both?
It was both, in the respect that I was sad because I'd never have the chance of having a mother who could love, and we'd never be able to. When we were living it, we were constantly living with the hope that she wouldn't be like that, and trying to placate her and change this, that and the other about her. But you can't change something, what is in somebody, what is innately part of them. And that closure made me realise that was a part of her that was innate, and I wasn't in control of any of it. And it was relief, because I was never going to have to suffer it ever again. And I didn't have someone around me that was so nasty and abusive.
What was the idea behind the book? Because I know you always says you're going to write a book and your father gave you the name for the book, but how was it putting the book together? Did it bring back a lot of emotion for you? Could you then get therapy with it, with speaking out against it? Because a lot of people say when you write things down, it can actually make you heal. Were you finding that process, or was it a difficult process to do?
It was extremely difficult, but it brought a lot of relief. And I was determined to write it because I'd promised me dad I would write it. And because the trauma bond was so strong as well between my mother and I was holding on, not wanting to speak out. But then I thought to myself, I've got to, because I'll not be the only person that's being abused by their mother. And it's something to put into the world to leave behind. I'm 60 and it'll help other people. I knew that would help other people as well as myself, you know. Too late if I'm ever gone and the story's never going to be heard, is it? Because there's only me that can tell the story.
Mm-hmm. Why do you question why you were given those cards? Why that was your mother? Do you question why you were given a mother like that?
I did for many, many, many years. I lived with complete confusion, not understanding what was wrong with her, why she was like that. And it wasn't until until the psychiatrist said, you know, the brain's completely scarred in exactly the same place where she would process emotion and have empathy. And yes, of course, I questioned that all of my life. It was so consuming mentally to be living with a mother with an obsession to hurt and the Munchausen by proxy and all of the other parts of the obsessions and this, that and the other. It was so, you know, you spent a lifetime placating somebody else. You didn't have time to think of, you know, what should I do about it? You're just so engrossed in it.
Where did the scan the brain come from? How is that? Are you born with that? Does it happen through time? Like, was there any sort of details on how that would happen?
No, I was just told it was likely that she'd been like that all of her life. Because the scarring wasn't new.
How's life now?
A lot easier than that. Yeah, it's do you know what, James? I actually appreciate every single day that I live. And I think I have grace and gratefulness because I really appreciate every single day, because I'm lucky to be alive, you know. So you're grateful after that experience. Whoa, it wouldn't matter what I was to live, you know, nothing could be as bad as that.
How was it when the book came out?
Well, I'm no good on computers. So this guy said, are you going to release it? Then I went, yeah, I think it's ready. I says, I'm, and I wanted to put a bit more in and a bit more. I want to put my, and and I really should have filled 4 books. I do plan on doing a sequel at some point, but I don't know when. And as I was on with this guy, Sean, who's been really helpful. And he's a lot younger than me, and he's so good on computers. And I've just been on doing an audio version of the book as well. And that should be ready soon. And he said, when are you going to bring it out soon? And I said, yeah. I says, maybe just one more sentence. He went, oh, Karen, I've pressed it. I went, press what? He went, I've pressed the button. I went, what? And he went, it's uploaded. I went, that was it. And I went, oh my goodness. And I felt overwhelmed with every kind of emotion you can think of. I felt like I was some form of betrayal to me mother. And then I thought, no, I'm not, because I'd been conditioned that much that, that was still living with us. But then I felt this big, massive sense of freedom. And it was like, whoa, I've done it. It's up, it's out there, it's off my shoulders. I don't have to carry it anymore. It's not mine to carry anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, good on you. Listen, thank you for your courage and your bravery for coming on today, Karen. But for anybody that's watching that's maybe stuck in that sort of nightmare, what advice would you have for them?
I would say to anybody, if a child's going through something and they're trying to reach out, listen to them. I would say to anyone, abuse comes in many forms: mental, physical, emotional, anything, but most of all, listen to the child. Because I think if the headmistress has listened to me, or the other lady, when I said, I believe my mother's poisoning me, I'm not a nasty person. For everything in the world, I never wanted to say anything bad about my mum. That was my mum. And what did you say, James? If you have any messages, what?
What would you say for people with maybe stuck in that life of misery? What advice would you have for them?
Anyone stuck in that life of misery, you can survive and you will get through. Don't stay put in a relationship, or whether it be with your mother or your father, relative, aunt, uncle, whatever. You can get through it. The trauma bond is something to learn about. And if I can survive what I've survived, so can you.
Karen, would you like to finish up on anything else?
Don't know. Did you cut this bit out? What should I?
No, listen, that's just what I'm saying. Just where can people buy your book?
Yeah. I would like to finish off by saying thank you to my husband, Kenny, for coming to paint the kitchen and never going home. And also to my 2 sons. They gave me the reason and the will to live. And I would like to say thank you to you, James, for giving us this opportunity to come on here today. And for anyone that wants to buy the book's on Amazon. It's called Poison Kisses by Karen Teasdale.
Karen, again, thank you for your bravery. Keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to seeing what you do for the future.
Thank
Good
you.
luck and God bless.
Thank you. Thanks.